class. Myself, Sridhar Mavadi, teacher in English. Today we will discuss the Unit 1 of English textbook, that is the best Christmas present in the world. This is a vast story against the backdrop of Christmas, a festival marked by family reunion, exchange of presents and universal bonhomie. In today's class, let us discuss how the war is connected to the Christmas and what is the present and why is it the best present in the world. Are you ready? Come on, let's start. Let us look the overview of this lesson, the best Christmas present in the world. This lesson consists of 6 components and they are: the first one, before you read, introduction; second, reading comprehension; third, vocabulary; fourth, speaking; fifth, writing; and the last one, the poem The Ant and the Cricket. In this video, we will discuss the 2 main important components, and that are before you read, introduction and reading comprehension. Learning outcomes. By the end of this lesson, you will be able to recall the significances or events of some dates that occurred in the story, list the names of the characters in the story, infer the importance of the envelope, identify the uses of phrasal verbs, describe a roll-top desk and Burlington House nursing home, identify the noun phrase and arrange the adjectives according to their order, express your ideas on the topic if wars are the only ways to resolve conflict, write an informal letter to your friend, choose the correct form of the verb. Our story, the best Christmas present in the world, is also related to another very important historical event of 20th century, that is the First World War. It happened between 1914 to 1918. Here is the clipping from the war. Just have a look at it.
When the Germans recovered from their surprise, resistance stiffened. It was never easy to defeat the German army.
During this war, something wonderful thing had happened between the Britishers against Germans. What was it? When did it happen? Who wanted to share that wonderful event with whom? How did he share that wonderful event? What is the role of the author in this lesson? How this event is connected to our lesson? Do you want to know? Then come on, let's go through it. But before to that, let us know the importance of following events. Students, look at these dates given here. Do you know what these dates are famous for? Now, let us discuss one by one in this topic. Now, let us look at the first event. 4th July 1776. Can you guess what happened on this day? Yes, America got independence on this date. Let us move on to the next date. 17th December 1903. Do you know what happened on this date? Can any one of you say the answer? Yes, Wilbur and Orville Wright made the first flight, remaining in the air for 12 seconds and covering 120 feet. Look at this date, 6th August 1945. Do you know what happened on this date? This is the most sorrowful day in the history of the world. An atom bomb was dropped on Hiroshima in Japan. 30th January 1948. Do you know what happened? I hope you all know that our great leader Mahatma Gandhi was assassinated by Nathuram Godse. Look at this date, 12th April 1961. Do you know what happened on this date? Can you guess? Yes, Yuri A. Gagarin became the first human to orbit the Earth. Now the last one, 20th July 1969. Do you know what happened on that day? That was the red letter day in the history of science. Neil Armstrong, the first human to set foot on moon. Students, are you ready? Let us start now. I spotted it in a junk shop in Bridport, a roll-top desk. The man said it was early 19th century and oak. I had wanted one, but they were far too expensive. This one was in a bad condition. The roll top in several pieces, one leg clumsily mended, scotch marks all down one side. It was going for very little money. I thought I could restore it. It would be a risk, a challenge, but I had to have it. I paid the man and brought it back to my workroom at the back of the garage. I began work on it on Christmas Eve. I removed the roll top completely and pulled out the drawers. The veneer had lifted almost everywhere. It looked like water damage to me. Both fire and water had clearly taken their toll on this desk. Let us go through the meanings of some difficult words from this passage. A roll-top desk, a type of writing table with a cover that you can push back or pull down. Scotch marks, a slight burn or a mark caused by burning. Veneer, a thin layer of plastic or decorative layer on furniture. Students, you can understand better by going through the subtext. The author Michael Morpurgo found a roll-top desk in a junk shop in Bridport. The owner said that it was early 19th century and made of oak. He could not buy it as it was too expensive. He saw another one which was in a bad condition but cheap. He thought that he could restore it. It would be a risk, but he should have it. So he bought it. He began to work on it at the back of the garage on Christmas Eve. He removed the roll top completely and pulled out the drawers. He found that these had been badly damaged by fire and water. Let me check how far you have understood the passage. And my first question on the board is, how was the roll top desk? You can say the answer. Very good. Yes, the desk was in a bad condition, one leg clumsily mended and scotch marks all down one side. Students, look at the second question. What did the author find in the junk shop? Option A clock. Option B, a roll-top desk. Option C, tape recorder. Option D, a photo frame. Choose the correct answer. Yes, you are correct. Answer is a roll-top desk. Students, let us read the next passage from this lesson. There was something in there. I reached in, took out a small black tin box. Sellotaped to the top of it was a piece of lined notepaper and written on it in shaky handwriting. Jim's last letter, received January 25, 1950. To be buried. with me when the time comes. I knew as I did it that it was wrong of me to open the box. But curiosity got better of my scruples. It usually does. Inside the box, there was an envelope. The address read Mrs. Jim Macpherson, 12 Copper Beaches, Bridport, Dorset. I took out the letter and unfolded it. It was written in pencil and dated at the top December 26, 1914. Let us go through the meanings of some difficult words from the passage. Sellotape, transparent adhesive tape. Scruples, a feeling that prevents you from doing something that you think is morally wrong. Students, let us understand better by going through the subtext. The last drawer had stuck fast. He had to use much force to open it. When it opened, it revealed a secret space. Below, there was a secret drawer. In it, he found a small tin box. Inside the box, there was an envelope. He knew it was wrong, but out of curiosity, he read the words written on a notepaper, and the words are Jim's last letter, received January 25, 1915, to be buried with me when the time comes. Inside, there was an envelope with the address Mrs. Jim Macpherson, 12 Copper Beaches, Bridport. The date was December 26, 1914. Students, let us check how far you have understood the passage. And the first question is, what was there inside the box? Options are A. A letter, B. An envelope, C. A gift, D. A diary. Can you guess the correct answer? Yes, the correct answer is option B, that is an envelope. Let us go to the second question. And the question is, why did he open the box? Students, can you guess the answer? Yes, he opened the box because his curiosity got the better of his scruples. Let us go through the difficult words in the passage. Trenches, a narrow channel dug in the ground. Garage, a building in which motor vehicles are repaired and serviced. Now let us see some more meanings. Fridge, a name for a German soldier. It is a common German name. Tommy, a common English name used here to refer to British soldiers. Schnapps, a German drink made from grains. Sausage, a thin tube-like case containing meat. Let me check how far you have understood this passage. And the first question is, who had written the letter? Option A, Mr. Macpherson. Option B, Hans Wolff. Option C, Mrs. Macpherson. And option D, Michael. Can you guess the right answer? Yes, the answer is option A, Mr. Macpherson. Now get ready for the second question. And the question is, what was the wonderful thing that had happened? The answer is, the wonderful thing was that the two armies fighting against each other had celebrated Christmas together. Students, shall we go through the next passage? Here it is. Ah, Dorset, he smiled. I know this place. I know it very well. We shared my rum ration and his excellent sausage. And we talked. Connie, how we talked. He spoke almost perfect English, but it turned out that he had never set foot in Dorset, never even been to England. He had learned all he knew of England from school and from reading books in English. His favorite writer was Thomas Hardy, his favorite book, Far from the Madding Crowd. So, out there in no man's land, we talked of Bathsheba and Gabriel Oak and Sergeant Troy and Dorset. He had a wife and one son, born just 6 months ago. As I looked about me, there were huddles of khaki and grey everywhere, all over no man's land, smoking, laughing, talking, drinking, eating. Hans Wolf and I shared what was left of our wonderful Christmas cake, Connie. He thought the marzipan was the best he had ever tasted. I agreed. We agreed about everything, and he was my enemy. There never was a Christmas party like it, Connie. Now, let us see the difficult words given in the passage. Cello, a musical instrument like a violin. Huddle, a close grouping of people or things. No man's land, land between the front lines or trenches of two opposing armies. Set foot, to enter a place. Students, you can understand this passage by going through this subtext. Hans Wolf smiled. He said he knew Dorset. In fact, he had never been to England, but he knew English. His favorite writer was Thomas Hardy. His favorite book was Far from the Madding Crowd. It was from there he had learned all about Dorset. So, in no man's land, they talked of Bathsheba and Gabriel Oak and Sergeant Troy and Dorset. Macpherson shared with Hans Wolf the Christmas cake his wife had sent for him. Hans Wolf said that the marzipan was the best he had ever tasted. We agreed about everything, and he was my enemy. It was a wonderful Christmas party that I have ever seen. Students, Macpherson and Hans Wolf talked about their favorite book and characters. Here are the pictures they talked about. Let us know about these characters one by one. Firstly, Far from the Madding Crowd novel. Thomas Hardy, the author of the novel. Bathsheba, the important character in this novel. She is a beautiful young woman at the center of the novel as the object of three men's attention. Sergeant Troy, the novel's antagonist. He is handsome, vain, young, and irresponsible, though he is capable of love. Lastly, Gabriel Oak. It is a fictional character, a skillful, hardworking, and honest young farmer. These are the characters they were talking about at that time. I hope you have understood the passage. Now answer the question. And the question is, how did he know all about Dorset and England? Can you say the answer? Yes. He had learned all from school and from reading books. The second question is, choose the words associated with Jim and Hans. Thomas Hardy, Jim is a teacher, played golf, Hans is a policeman, marzipan, smoking and eating. So the words associated with Jim and Hans. Thomas Hardy, Yes. Jim is a teacher? Right. Played golf? Wrong. They played football. Hans is a police? Wrong. Marzipan? Yes, they enjoyed. Smoking and eating? Yes, they did it. Shall we continue with the next paragraph? Sure. Then someone, I don't know who, brought out a football. Great coats were dumped in piles to make goalposts. And the next thing we knew, it was Tommy against Fridge out in the middle of no man's land. Hans Wolf and I looked on and cheered, clapping our hands and stamping our feet to keep out the cold as much as anything. There was a moment when I noticed our breaths mingling in the air between us. He saw it too and smiled. Jim Macpherson, he said after a while, I think this is how we should resolve this war. A football match. No one dies in a football match. No children are orphaned. No wives become widows. I would prefer cricket, I told him. Then we Tommies could be sure of winning, probably. We laughed at that and together we watched the game. Sad to say, Connie, Fridge won 2-1. But as Hans Wolf generously said, our goal was wider than theirs. So it wasn't quite fair. Now you can understand better by going through this subtext. Then a soldier brought out a football. The soldiers played while Macpherson and Hans Wolf clapped and cheered. There was a moment when Jim noticed that their breaths mingling in air. Hans Wolf suggested that the world would be much better if the problems were resolved by a football match instead of war. Neither a child can become an orphan, nor a wife can become a widow. Finally, Fridge won the match by 1 goal. The time came and they departed. They hoped that the war would end and see their families soon. They spent that night singing carols in the dugouts. In the subtext, we discussed that the soldiers stayed in the dugouts singing carols like Silent Night and while shepherds watched. Do you know what the carols are? Now let us see the meaning and videos. Firstly, carols. It is a religious folk song or popular hymn, particularly one associated with Christmas. Now let us watch the videos.
Silent night, holy night, all is calm, all is bright, round young virgin, mother and child, holy infant, so tender and mild, sleep in heavenly peace. While shepherds watch their flocks by night, all seated on the ground, the angel of the Lord came down, and glory shone around. Fear not, said he, for mighty dread hath seized their troubled minds. Glad tidings of great joy I bring to you and all mankind.
Check how far you have understood this passage. Choose the statement which is not correct. Option A. Wars can be resolved by playing football match. Option B. German's goal was not wider than the Tommies. Option C. Mr. Macpherson prefers cricket to football. Option D. Fridge won 2 goals and the Tommies won 1. Now the statement which is not correct is option B. German's goal was not wider than the Tommy's. Coming to the second question. Why do Jim and Hans think that games and sports are good ways of resolving wars? Can you guess the answer? Yes. Because no one dies in a game, no children are orphaned, no wives become widows. Now, let me check how many of you have understood today's class. Are you ready? Students, shall we start the question? Choose the statement which is not correct. And the options are: option A, the soldiers on both sides are longing for peace. Option B, they hoped that they would see their families soon. Option C, they exchanged carols for a while and fell silent. Option D, Jim saluted and walked away from Hans slowly. Can you guess the answer? Yes, the correct option is option D. Jim saluted and walked away from Hans slowly. One more. Who had written the letter to whom? Option A. Mr. Macpherson to Kearney. B. Hans Wolf to Jim. Mrs. Macpherson to Mr. Macpherson. And D. Michael to Jim. Which one is the right answer? Option A. Jim Macpherson has written to Kearney. Now, next one. What job did Hans Wolf and Jim have when they were not soldiers? Hans Wolf played the cello in the orchestra and Jim was a teacher in Dorset when they were not soldiers. Coming to the next question. Why was the letter written? The letter was written to share a wonderful incident with his wife. Pick out the word that means a feeling that prevents you from doing something that you think is morally wrong. A. Huddle. B. Dugout. C. Scruples. D. Stuck fast. So what is the right answer? C. Scruples is the right answer. Very good. And finally, home task, children. Now the questions are: do you think Jim Macpherson came back from the war? How do you know this? Who do you think had put the envelope in the box? This is for you to do at home.